What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Earn It, Save and Invest It. This is my week 19 of my $100,000 challenge. If you've been following, I'm trying to turn $7,354 into $100,000. I'm trying to get 20% per year on that. So I'm going to go over what I think is going to happen in the market. Where's my portfolio right now? Did I buy? Did I sell? What am I doing right now? So yeah, go ahead and give a like and subscribe to my content if you like my content. And I'm just going to go over really quick. This is my kind of like weekly thing. I go over my $100,000 challenge, but I also do kind of go over what I think about the market. I go over the fear and greed index. So we're going to go over all that right now. So I'm currently at $9,313.79. Friday was kind of a bloodbath. On October 10th, it was, because right now it's October 12th. It was a bloodbath. So I had all of this, all of these stocks were down pretty big. Let's see. This is my HIMS. I had sold some of those a couple weeks ago. I sold about 20%. I sold 20%. I had 50, now I'm down to 40. So I sold 10. And I sold it about 58 something. And granted, yeah, I could have just sold a lot more. But I was just like, I just wanted to take off some of my capital, my initial investment, right? I had put in $1,000 into the stock, and so I took out 500 basically from it, and so now I'm sitting on about $1,000 cash, as you can see right here. This is my cash right here. Oh, how do I get to that? Where is it? Still trying to figure out how do I. Oh, here it is. So here's my cash, but I'm trying to zoom in on that. How can I not zoom in? Sorry, I'm trying to still learn this. But I have about $1,000 cash. So that equals about 11% of my portfolio right now. So it's starting to creep up. So I'm going to start buying a little bit more here, obviously, if the market starts doing what I think it's going to do. My portfolio performance, since the beginning of the week, it went down $207. And that's just the investments. I did put in $50 because I do that every single week. I put in $50 a week. And so I started at 94.71 and now I'm at 93.13. Not the biggest difference. This stuff is going to happen. You're going to have zero ups and downs. Here I was outperforming the market pretty decently, and I still outperformed the market. I didn't outperform the NASDAQ. Actually, oh, here's the NASDAQ. Wait, what? That's wrong. That has to be wrong. There's no way the NASDAQ didn't move on these days. With there's a little hiccup in this, because definitely the NASDAQ was down. So that was just this week. So since I started this challenge June 2nd, I put in $950. That's 19 weeks of $50. And then I'm up $1,000 on my investment. Now, this shows a lot of how important it is to make small investments like every week, every month, because over this June, right? So it's been about 4 months now. I'm up $1,000 in my investment, but I've invested $1,000. And so, you'd be like, oh, well, I've kind of just doubled my, I have a lot more writing on it. It's not like I just put $1,000 on black and I got 1,000 back kind of a thing, right? I also had $7,354 working for me. But, it's just crazy how it's just going to keep building. If I did not put in those $950, I'd be, at $8,300, I'd be well below my goal, right? So, you really want to put in a little bit every week or every month. Since I started the challenge, again, as you can see, a lot of ups and downs, lots of ups and downs. That's what's going to happen. I am I'm behind the Russell 2000 and the Nasdaq, but I am beating the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones, so that's good. I also do want to keep this for anybody, that's kind of, everyone's probably new to this if you're even still watching at this point. I started this whole challenge, this $100,000 challenge. My HIMS position was already it was already basically, the price was where it was right now. I mean, if I actually, this is really, I'll do that later. But HIMS was basically at the price it is today. So HIMS has gone up and down, up and down, up and down, and hasn't done a whole lot for me. Whereas then I've had to make a lot of this, all these gains off the rest of my portfolio. So I already made big gains on HIMS when I started this challenge. So that I already knew that in itself was going to make it a bigger challenge. This is my transactions. I did buy 10 shares of Fubo at $3.81 for a total of about $40, and not. I said I would like to be buying $50 a week, but I did also say that if I start to see maybe a crash or a correction happening, I might be buying less and just letting the cash build up a little bit more. Maybe reassessing my portfolio and saying, hey, is now a good time to take a little bit off the table if things get bad? Is this a more higher at risk stock? Now Fubo, I understand, is a, it's a low cap, but or small cap stock, but it's like, and it can be volatile. It has this big Disney deal coming up, and I think it's actually going to be less volatile than something like HIMS, where it's, I think, a little bit more susceptible to these big volatile swings, which is why, of course, I would rather sell HIMS, and of course I have the profits. But I did buy Fubo at $3.81, and then I of course put in the $50. If I'm going to be starting at $7,354, depositing $50 a week and getting 20% of compounded annual growth rate a year, by week 19, I should be at $8,841.23, and I'm actually at $9,313.79. So I'm beating my goal by just under $500. That's pretty good. But as you can see, there's plenty of times where I've gone above, right here I'm above, and then I start to dip. I dip below, right? Wait, where did I dip below? Didn't I dip below? Right. Oh, wait. I never dipped below my, no, I think it was just, I climbed up, right? I went to 7,900, then I jumped up to 8,800, right? And then it took a whole nother while for me to even break that barrier again. So you have your ups and downs. You go up, and then you kind of go down, and then you go back up, and then you go back down. So since week 16, I haven't gone up. I've gone down. It's now been 3 straight weeks down. So that's what's going to happen. And that's 3 straight weeks of going down, and the market's been going up. When the market hits, my 9,300 is going to be $7,000. It's going to be $7,000 at some point, I bet, when the market really takes a hit. Now, I have to understand that when that happens, my stocks, my positions are in good companies, everything's going to come back, and I'll be okay. But I do think at some point my portfolio could go to $7,000 to $8,000 just off a significant pullback from the market. But this is where I'm at, so I'm beating my, my goal. Now this is from another account I have, and I want to just explain where I do put my money where my mouth is. I do think the market is in for a correction. I've been saying that. That I think September was going to be that, and if we don't get it in September, October is going to be hard. I think we might be hitting that point now. It's in the middle of October. So of course there's a lot of people out there that call, oh, recession, 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 and at some point they're right? I don't want to be that person that's just constantly calling for a crash and this and that, but I do believe there will be a correction happening here. And so I'm putting my money where my mouth is, but this is another account. I bought one call option for the SQQQ. So now that I own TQQQ, which means it's essentially a bet that the Qs are going to go up, right? The Qs are basically the NASDAQ. So you can essentially think of, as long as the market is going up, as long as the NASDAQ is going up, TQQQ is going up. If the market is going up, SQQQ is going down. So then if you flip it, if the market is going down, SQQQ is going up and TQQQ is going down. So if you saw in my portfolio, TQQQ went down 10% on Friday. 10%. My SQQQ call option, I was down a little bit. I was down like maybe 20% by that time, maybe 15%. It jumped 50% just on Friday. And so I'm definitely in the green on this. I could probably cash out and be good with like maybe a 20 or 30% profit right off the top right away. I'm not going to do that because I think there's a little bit more in it, but I mean, depending on how, this contract expires January of 26. It only has 2 months, literally 2 months or 3 months. So I don't like carrying these options, especially for something that goes against the market like that. I don't want to do this. If I can really get some good profits on something, take my profits and put those profits towards something good, right? But with me talking about how the market might crash, how there might be a correction, just wanted to show you I put my money where my mouth is. I'm not just talking the S. I do try to back it up. Whether backing it up means I'm successful or not, I can't predict that, but I'm just saying I'm not just talking, So this is the AAII sentiment. And this is like basically how the investors are feeling. Now, you have to remember these are taken, or it at least ends on Wednesday, right? So everyone was feeling really bullish, right? We're at almost 46%. Let's zoom in a little bit more, right? Like we're at 46% on Wednesday. I think this number is going to finally go down. We've been going up for the last 4 weeks, and like I said, isn't that weird, right? The last 3 weeks my portfolio has gone down, but it's gone up. The market's gone up in the last 3 weeks, and really it's been a few of my positions that have gone down, namely HIMS, that's really gone down since that point. And it really has pulled a lot of my portfolio, which is why I sold some. But anyway, the market's been feeling really bullish lately. And it's interesting on what this is going to be next Wednesday, right? If Monday doesn't feel too good, then you best believe this is going to drop at least 2% or more. Special question: which market cap style of stocks do you expect to outperform over the next 6 months? Small cap is leading the way at 33.5, then large cap at 29, then not sure, no opinion, and then mid cap. So people are thinking going to the extremes, the smaller the large. Small cap probably because the Fed has taken down the interest rate. So people are going to think, well, small caps are now going to start running. Also, just historical averages, 37% bullish. We're at almost 46. I don't like that. We're feeling really bullish. Why? Why are we feeling so bullish? What's the reason that we feel so bullish? And I also called this. I said we're going to go. I didn't think we'd drop into the fear that much. I understand it's very emotional. Stock market is so emotional. So the fact that we're now back into the fear this far into the fear doesn't exactly surprise me too much. It does surprise me a little bit, but not too much. If we jumped all the way into extreme fear, I'd be like, there'd have to be some catastrophic event. There'd have to be a war starting or something like that. But the fact that we jumped so much within a day or two is crazy. It's crazy. So, but I did call it. I did say we're going to go back into the fear. Now things are going to start. Now, it's also because I've been saying I think there's going to be a correction, and with the correction will come fear. I think it's going to be a big week, though. We only have 2 companies announcing earnings on Monday. But then on Tuesday, we have JP Morgan, Johnson & Johnson, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, Citigroup, even Domino's, Albertsons. Those are big name companies that are going to be announcing their earnings. Right after that, we have Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, PNC Financial, Kinder Morgan. We have all these, United Airlines, right? Synchrony Financial. There's so many big companies that are going to be announcing in this week, and if there's any shred of doubt of anything, or not even a doubt, it just has to be like, are we just a little bit too much right now, right? Have we priced in too much, or will there be more pain to come, right? Will there be some kind, whether it's the tariffs or interest rates or some kind of something that these companies start hinting at, that's, we're like, you know what? We're a little bit too priced in right now. Let's price out. Right? So something like that could happen. And I do want to go over the market really quick. And I'm already at what am I at? I'm at 16 minutes. It's actually not too much. But so this is the Qs right now. And I've been saying I can see this triangle happening. Now this line right here, that's pretty significant. If I was looking at the chart, I would say, oh, it's actually a good time to buy. To be honest with you, I would say buy. Even though I do think it's going to go down here, if it doesn't go down there, you at least bought on a good drop, right? That's a significant one-day drop compared to all the other ones. Look at that. We're looking at a 3% drop. When was the last time we had one of those? We had that one was a big gain. All right, here we go. That was the last day. That was Tuesday, April 8th. That was the last basically big red day that we had of, the whole tariff announcement that happened. And we're going through with the tariffs, right? That happened, when was this? February 19th, February 20th? Boom, everything started going. But not once did we have a day that was bigger than what we did. Oh yeah, of course it's going to go up. What am I saying? What am I thinking? Let's see this. 3%, right? So this was probably actually a bigger drop, actually, now that I think about it. Because it's a bigger percentage, yeah. It's about 5%. Right, so still, this was about 3% drop on Friday. We haven't had many of those days. And you could say, well, over here, it still wasn't a buy. It wasn't a buy here, but eventually it was, right? And you're starting to get into the buy motion. But like I said, this was my first prediction. I said, look, if September is a hard month, right? Here's September. This is when the Fed was going to announce interest rates. I said, maybe they say something, they hint at something that says, no. That didn't happen. The market cheered it on. They cheered it on. I mean, look, it just boosted up. Had a little pullback for a couple days, and then it just kept going up. But then I said, okay, we got to this point, and I said something has to. It just can't keep going. It can't keep going like this. And I understand. I know how a bull market can be a bull market, and I understand this stuff. And we may be in a bull market right now, but we're also in volatile times. We're in a time where interest rates, inflation, our president can tweet on X, whatever, message something, post something on X, and like just make the market fall, or make certain stocks fall, make Bitcoin go up. Like there's so many things that can happen that's just different than just the market's just moving, you know? We do have a little bit of turmoil happening. So it's just, I'm looking at this, I'm saying, okay, I think I can see this triangle being a part of all these triangles. Remember, like I said, these are all 10% drops or more. That was a 15%, 24%. Here was a 10, almost 11%. This one was a really big 36%. That was all of 2022. 11%, 14%, 28%. Oh, it had to have been COVID, right? Yeah. So all of these were really big drops, right? We just got off a 24% and a 15%. I do not believe we're going to have another 15 to 20. I do not think that. I think we're going to have a 7 to 15, a 7 to more like a 12, 13%. This is what I have a 10. This when you look at this triangle, you're like, it's kind of a big drop. This is only 10%. 10%. It's not that big. So this went to even just 12% right here. It goes a little bit more. So I think a 10% drop is possible. I would say probable, but that's just my unprofessional opinion. Right? I'm not a professional. I'm not certified. I just watch as much as I can. I do buy and sell. I've made my mistakes. I've had my successes. And I try to learn from both of them as much as I can, because I hate repeating my mistakes. I love repeating my successes. So, and sometimes you can repeat the same thing that you're like, I was successful in this. I did this and this and this, and that's how I got, so you do it again, and it doesn't work the second time, right? Oh, subscribe, please, if you're even still watching. There might be maybe one or two of you, even at this point. I don't know, hope so. But, there's sometimes you'll trade a stock, you'll buy it, and it's successful. And like, you know what? I did A, B, and C. That's how I did it, right? So you do A, B, and C again, and it fails. Like, was my A, B, and C, was right the first time, why is it wrong the second time? And that's one of the things I'm also figuring out too, is that with the stock market, you can do the same thing and still get a different result completely. There's so much to a company. There's so many bits and pieces, from the past to the current to the future, all of that stuff, their numbers, economics, what's the landscape like, just the national, international landscape like, there's a lot of things that go into it. And so you really have to start figuring out which factors are the most important at this time. I think time is a big one. Where are we? When are we? At what point are we? And so that's what I'm just trying to figure out right now. And I think we are still in a volatile point, even though the market is pushing up pretty heavily. We are in a Donald Trump presidency. And if you do remember the first one, it was very volatile. Very volatile. So, and he doesn't mess around. He likes to mix things up, right? And when there's different elections, right now we're going to have a lot of politics happening. And when politics happen, it becomes a little murky with it just becomes more emotional. When there's more emotions, you have to expect bigger drops and bigger pops. So I just expect, since the market has even ran more since I predicted it falling, I still think at least a 10 to 12%. My number's really not going to change as much as I'd like it to still get down to the number I thought it would get. I don't care. I just think at some point we're going to have a 10 to 13, I would say maybe 8 to 13% drop, because we're just asking for it. But yeah, if you like my stuff, go ahead, please give a like and subscribe. And yeah, just when it comes to the market, if you start to think that it might crash, don't be scared, be prepared, right? Have enough cash, keep buying, make sure you're buying quality stocks. You want to buy growth stocks, you want to buy value stocks, and you definitely want to have some cash. So anyway, that's it for today. And don't forget to
earn it, save it, invest it, buy low, sell high. I want assets, not liabilities, and you can count on compounded interest.